Welcome back, everyone. So we're entering week 3 of 2020.
Is it?
Yeah. We're entering the third week.
Okay.
You feel like it was just 2019, right? Just yesterday. So we know time waits for no one. So the time to work on your business is now. And who best to tell us how than the big, bad ad PR chick, Naomi. Garrick. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, guys.
You look absolutely fabulous.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much. But you guys have an awesome makeup artist around the back. So.
Yeah. Come here, come. Don't make your head swell too
Yeah,
big
and
now.
I'm learning too, so. You know,
Everything you want to learn, makeup, hair, and everything.
Everything.
That's one of your goals.
Because my daughters, me I go to the.
Yes, that's a goal, it seems. So, speaking of goals, let us ask Naomi, how do we go about starting off a new year? How do we set those goals?
Okay, so for me, and I don't know if anyone else is like this, I get very excited about the new year, but I also get a little bit terrified at the same time. Why? Because you start thinking about last year. You know, you wake up, 2019, you had all these big goals, and now is the time to look back and say, did I actually accomplish these goals? Were some of these goals really important? Maybe I have some new ones. And then you're coming into a new year, and for me, 2020 is a big year because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be 40.
Whoop, whoop.
So you start to really reflect, and you're like, okay, I'm going to be 40. What have I actually done? Or what do I want to do? And so for me, I start with the reflection. So I start looking back because I realize a lot of times we get so anxious about what we have not done yet or what is left to come, and we don't actually take the time to think about what we actually did, the small things and the big things. So I like to sit down and just write a list of all the things that I did the year before. Little things, big things, things that were important to me, maybe some small things that weren't as important, but they still count and they matter. And then I start thinking about, okay, are any of these goals from 2019, do I need to bring them back over to 2020? Or maybe they're not important anymore because of the journey that I had in 2019. So maybe they're not so important, so they won't make it back to 2020, and I'm okay. But then I start to look at the new year. But I always like to start looking at the new year with a theme. So I like to pick a theme for my year.
Okay.
So this year's theme for me is all in. So whatever the goal is or whatever I'm doing, I really want to go all in on it. So even if it doesn't work out or I don't do so well in that goal, I will still feel accomplished because I put my all into it and all the effort, and I'll move on to something else.
Yeah.
So I always recommend starting with what's the theme for your year, and then you apply it to everything that you're doing.
So you mentioned when people don't accomplish their goal the year before, it weighs on your mind coming into the next year.
Yes.
How do you now separate your mindset from saying, I didn't accomplish this last year, it's in the back of my mind? How do you separate that?
So mindset is everything, and I know this segment is the power within. And so for me, I started really getting more clarity around understanding the power that we have within ourselves as we're making decisions and choosing things. And so even when you're looking back at your last year or the previous year, as I said earlier, there may be some goals on that list that you didn't actually need to accomplish, because as we go through life every day, every week, every month, every year, our journey changes. Things happen that we don't expect, and that's okay. Because I really believe your journey is the reward. So every part of the journey makes you who you are in this moment. So to really look back on those things and say, did I really need to accomplish this? And is it okay that I didn't accomplish this goal? Maybe I had actually accomplished some things that I didn't even have on my list last year that were even better goals.
Yes.
But why I think goals look so scary is because they're so big sometimes. And so when we don't accomplish it, you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And so what I do is that I try to break down that big goal into smaller goals or smaller bites. So that when you accomplish a very small goal, a piece of that big goal, you feel like you've done something and you want to celebrate. And when you start to be in that mood of celebration, you want to do more things that will allow you to celebrate. And so I will look at what the big goal is, and then I'll break that big goal into actionable next steps. So what's the first thing that I could actually do to get closer to this goal? So let's say the goal is to be fit for 2020. All right, maybe the first goal is to actually weigh myself, or go to the gym, or get a consultation, or find out what's the why behind it. Why do I actually want to get fit for 2020? I was telling you about an exercise that someone asked me to do this year, which gave me a lot of clarity into the goal setting going on to the next 10 years. And so I was asked to write down 50 goals, which is a lot, 50 goals between now and over the next 10 years, and then break them down into 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year goals. And then after doing that, they said to pick 4 of the top goals. What are going to be your priorities from each bucket? And then when you start looking at that, you realize that maybe this isn't really a priority for me. Maybe I actually don't have 4 that are a priority within this bracket. But then also, the next question was, what's the why behind the goal? Why is this a goal for you? Sometimes we write things down and, I like to think it's a big wish list, but there's no real intention behind it.
And so there's no push to do
And
it.
so there's no push to do it. So you really have to look at your goals and then think about, why is this important to me?
Right.
And sometimes people will say, what's the worst thing that could happen if I don't accomplish this goal? And sometimes that gives you the push that you really need. Maybe you need to get your finances in order. What happens if you don't have your finances in order?
And you mentioned celebration. I
Yes.
don't think a lot of people celebrate their wins because sometimes they're not massive wins.
Yes.
Sometimes you get a small win and you're like, it can pass. How important is it for you, if you set a goal, to celebrate your wins?
I think it's very important. So my friend Nasha Peterkin, we tried to set some financial goals last year, and she was just like, I know we're trying to save and we're trying to, do some debt management, but she's like, but when you reach one of the goals, like maybe clearing a credit card, do something small to celebrate. Whether it's
No, run up back the credit card.
no, we don't even want to look back at the credit card. But she's like, do something small that you can celebrate. It could be going to the beach. It could be just having a cocktail. It doesn't have to be a big extravagant celebration, but something that makes you feel good.
Yeah. A lot of the times we find our better selves at the beginning of the year. We start getting that power and we have this boost. How do we maintain the power that we have inside? Because by the time we reach February, March, some of us, no, I'm being honest, some of us, that fire that we started with, it's not there anymore.
So something that my colleagues that do Emerge with me, Rochelle and Catherine, always says that you have to find your circle of genius. So you need to have your accountability partners. And for me personally, that helps a lot. So I don't like to exercise. I really don't like it. I like the results of the exercising, but I don't like the process.
Amen.
So for me, I need those people around me that are going to actually call me at 4 o'clock in the morning to say, hey, are you up? It's time to go to the gym. And they're helping me to be accountable. If I don't show up, I'm going to get a phone call to say, hey, why weren't you there? Or I will pick you up so that we both go together to make sure you're there. So it's finding those people, sharing your goals with the right people, and then finding those people in your life that can actually help you and encourage you to maintain them or checking on you. So that's where mentorship comes into play as well. Mentorship and having those right people in that circle to help to push you, because it's hard. And as you said, when everybody starts off the year feeling really great, ready to go, you start crushing some of the goals, and then as you say, February comes and real life starts to set in, especially for those that are multitasking or parents, or it's a lot,
anyone,
right? And we're all looking to have balance, which I think it's a weird word for me. I don't think, for me personally, I don't think I'm balanced. I try to be better every day, and sometimes I'm not. And that's okay.
But that's balance.
Right.
Some days up,
Some days it's not.
You have this package in your hand, and it looks very nice.
So I brought. So they're actually for you. So
that's why I asked them.
I got you guys a copy of my workbook. It's a PR Chicks Guide, 8 Steps to Building Your Personal Brand. And why I brought them today is because the question I got was about the power within. And the first chapter in the workbook is about, who am I? So we don't take the time to actually think about who we are as an individual. What are the gifts that we have? What's the value that we bring? What's the problem that we solve in whatever industry we're in?
Yeah, and this is a workbook to guide
and it's a
your way
workbook,
through, right?
so it's you're being very intentional as you're going through the workbook.
And this is available to everyone.
Yeah, man,
for
it's available.
purchase?
It's at Fontana Pharmacy, and it's also available on Amazon.com.
Wonderful.
But what it's good for an individual, but it's also the same steps you use for business. You have to start with getting the clarity.
Yes.
Who you are, why you're doing this, what's your personal brand mission statement, and then you start thinking about your value. What's the unique value that you have that nobody else has, or how do you make your value even better? And then you start thinking about how can you communicate this?
Yes.
Who are you actually trying to communicate this to? And where are they? Is it online? Is it when you network? Is it when you go to an event? And so you start thinking through those things, and that's how you actually really start to identify what your brand is and who actually has the problem that you can solve.
Nice.
Awesome.
One piece of advice for 2020. The most
2020.
important piece of advice you can give us.
I would say, that's a good question. I would say to stay focused.
And
So
go
I
all in.
actually wear a little button at my office that says focus all the time to remind me to stay focused. Stay focused on the things that are important to you. Especially because we're in this digital age of now and things are happening and you see people living their hashtag best life and you feel like you're not living it. It kind of takes you off your focus. So you have to figure out what are your things that you want to focus on and stick to those things.
Yep.
Focus and be all in.
And be all
And be
in.
all in.
The PR
All
ship
in for 2020.
Yes.
and beyond.
And beyond.
There we go.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
The PR superstar.
Yes, she ain't a chick.
Naomi.
She
Garrick.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And